So, what do you know about the artefacts and its origins?
The artefacts that we have in our collection that you've seen today are from the Civil War Town Armour collection, which is owned by Trinity Hospital. They exist just over the river from us, and we bought their building in 1994, which was built in the 1300s. But at some point in time, they became custodians of the Town Armour, which is a Civil War armour collection, but it's unclear whether it's possibly Victorian replicas themselves, or it's undergone modification by the Victorians, the use of like brown paint on the blades of the halberd to make it more vintage. They didn't care as much as conservation as we do today, but we know that the town armour was on display in the chapel area of Trinity Hospital, and residents of the hospital, it's a hospital in the sense of like a care home we'd recognise today. They used to, I guess, force the residents to wear this armour and use this funerary or ceremonial sword as a part of some reenactment that they did themselves in the Newark area that we're in today. But it hopefully dates from the 1600s, about 1645, the time of the Civil War, and has been in our collection for about 5-6 years. Yeah.
Cool. So what do you know about the artefact and its construction?
Very little. We're exploring, since we've been in communication with yourself, taking advantage of the fact that we're in a science building and that we've got access to a range of university departments and technologies such as NMR and SEM, to try and understand more about their makeup, because if there's an interest from the public, and especially for academic research purposes, that we can then showcase, that maybe we should be looking at that into a more finer detail.
Thank you. So is there a modern alternative to these materials that is readily available?
Quite possibly, but again, I wouldn't know myself without knowing how the materials are made. I think that question helps to prompt another one about 3D printed materials, so the materials that are used, so the plastics. I don't see why they can't be used to make facsimile and reproductions for handling purposes and teaching. Yeah.
Thank you. How was the artefact hardened, if it was hardened at all?
I would only know from what you've told me. So in the forging process, maybe? A hammer and an anvil? My knowledge of blacksmithing is very limited, I'm afraid.
What are your thoughts on the reproductions of historical artefacts?
I think it's very important. I think it offers a lot of benefits. So in our space, behind me are the ruins of a church, and beside me is a 3D print of that church. And obviously the church was built in 1352, finished by about 1414, 1416, but then knocked down by 1548, the Reformation, dissolution of the chantries to be specific. And John Leland and John Riley both visited. One visited the church when it stood, one visited the ruins. There was a lot more to the ruins than what we have today. These primary sources noted everything and enable us to fill in the gaps. So we've got a gap in our storytelling, which is the church itself. So reproductions for us offer a way of filling in those gaps and telling the whole story. We're an analogy I like to, when we've had school children, is you're looking back at the past, but we're looking back at the past through a keyhole, because we only have such little of the artefacts still here. So.
Thank you. Do you believe that reproductions have a place in academia? And if so or not, please tell me why.
I do believe they have a place in academia. Through the research that you're conducting, it's shown us what benefits it has. But with the departments that we know that are here on the campus, there's a lot of like cross-department working that we can be doing, and it can not only benefit us, but it can contribute to maybe someone who's doing something with the NMR, nuclear resonance, something, isn't it? Whatever their background is, we could be contributing to their research. So it can enable us to learn more what the materials are made from and how it was actually manufactured or produced. So yeah, I think it can offer a lot for academic purposes.
Thank you. What place do you think reproductions have in academia?
As a handling copy, so with working in a museum, we have to follow strict guidelines about preservation and conservation, and that's limiting our handling of the original article. So if you've dug up a Saxon sword that's in tatters and it's rusted and it's very fragmentary appearance at this point, you don't want to be handling that, especially with your bare hands. So if we're able to employ the kind of research that you're doing, along with our departments that we have on the campus, we can maybe make a true to its original form reproduction, a replica, that we can then have on display, not in a display case, augmenting the exhibition and augmenting the storytelling and the more making a tangible engagement. So when people come in, they're not just looking into a display case and seeing an object, they're actually understanding how heavy it is, because I'm not aware of how heavy a suit of armour is, but if I had the ability to try one on, let's say, or wield a sword safely, I would maybe understand the stress and the strain that actually was born on the battlefield. So yeah, that would be my answer, I think.
Thank you. As a curator/historian, what usage would you put a reproduction to?
Having on display and making it accessible. I would use it for teaching purposes, so we're hoping to do more visits to almost making the field trip to schools, especially in light of COVID and coming out of lockdowns. People have scaled back spending money on coach trips to places like our space, so we're wondering if we can go visit them, and taking a historic collection is maybe something you don't want to do, insurance and costs, but if you had a reproduction of what it once looked like and how it was made, an accurate reproduction, this facsimile could offer a great deal of benefit to showcase to a wider audience the object.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I can't think of anything now, but I think we need to be doing more with 3D scanning and augmented realities. We have a VR headset that might be, you can see here, to help tell a story, especially when things are missing in the story of an object. So again, going back to our example of the ruins, to fill in the black blanks and tell the rest of that story, all of these things, and we were discussing earlier holograms, so holograms could offer something much more to a museum space.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Cheers.